Good morning. Welcome to the Oxnard City Council regularly scheduled Finance and Governance Committee meeting. The date is October 13, 2020, and we'll have the city clerk take the roll, please.
Member Lopez.
Here.
Member Perello.
Here.
Chair Flynn.
Present.
Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Wednesday, October 7th.
Thank you very much. And what we'll do now is stand for a flag salute, a pledge to the nation. And all rise, please.
And we have a moment of silence for the rock and roll star Van Zandt that passed.
Thank you. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated, please. So first and foremost, we'll go to public comments on items not on the agenda. And let's see. We have two speakers, correct, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, we'll go to Henry Sapien to be followed by Jim Lavery, please.
So this means he's answered it, but he's not hitting the one yet. So, Henry, if you can hear us, please press 1 so you can get into the meeting, please. Okay, looks like the call didn't go through.
The call did not go through.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we go to the next speaker, Jim Lavery, please.
Hi, Jim. You're live in the committee meeting. You have 2 minutes for items not on the agenda. Please begin now.
Okay, thank you. I just want to respond to a blog that was posted by interest from the police department last Friday on Citizens for a Better Oxnard. I didn't say that. The city manager used a number in his report last week about per capita expenditures, and it said in 2019, the city had spent $110.2 million on public safety. So I went and found the actual number in the CAFR, and it's on page 175 for those interested. And it's a chart of historical expenditures and revenue trends over a 10-year period. But what's missing and what's not said, that I understand why it isn't said, if you look at the chart, if you look at specifically fiscal year 2017, total costs for went to public safety went to $95 million in fiscal year 2017 to $114 million in fiscal year 2018, a 20% increase, then fell a bit to the $110.2 million figure in 2019. Then in July of 2018, Mr. Nguyen and his new team comes in, declares that the city has a structural deficit a few months later, then lays off 30 blue-collar workers. Of course, they're non-public safety workers, and they're more likely than not to live in the city, to spend their money here and send their kids to school here. So what's my point? My point is that
20 seconds.
Looking how much, look at the percentage you're spending on public safety expenditures, you know, in order to, instead of just raising taxes on people, you think there are certain things you can go after, and the percentage that public safety consumes of the general funds and measurable budget is about 65%.
Time's
Too
up.
high.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And can we try Mr. Sapien one more time, please?
Okay, 1 second. That usually means if it's ring, a lot of times that usually just means it's gone to voicemail, but it doesn't hang up yet until.
Okay, so it went to voicemail again?
That's what I'm assuming. It hasn't shown me the call fail notice just yet, but I'm assuming. Okay, yeah, now it's showing the calls failed. So didn't go through. He didn't pick up. So Mayor, he didn't pick up the call.
No, City Clerk, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Oh, okay, very good. So once again, we did try it twice and it looks like it's going to voicemail from Mr. Sapien.
Right.
Have we ever been able to get a hold of Mr. Sapien in the numerous times that he's requested to speak?
I think like once.
Okay. I'm just concerned. I don't know if he has some kind of, you know, problem or with his phone system or whatever, but we can work on that later. So thank you so much. Just want to make sure that we give him the opportunity to speak. Now we'll go to item C on the agenda, which is the consent agenda and the minutes. The City Clerk's Department, item 1, approval of the minutes, and the recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee approve the minutes of September 22nd, 2020. What's the pleasure of the committee?
I'll make the motion to approve, but I would recommend that since we had a speaker on public comments not on the agenda, that we try them one more time at the end of the meeting. And I'd like to further make suggestion that when these meetings start, the mayor and the clerk both announce, please shut your TV or radio off in the background, and we'll give you 2 calls, 2 shots at it to let them know, because this is a little herky-jerky when we can't get people. And then they text or an email saying, hey, I was here. But I'd make the motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, we have a motion by Committee Member Perillo and a second by Committee Member Lopez.
Member Lopez,
Yes.
Member Perlo,
Yes.
Chair Flynn.
Yes, aye.
The motion carries 3-0. And if I could just make a quick comment, Member Perlo, they do receive those instructions both when they sign up and they receive a reminder email the morning of the meeting, letting them know that, you know, typically we only try one time to call and that they do need to turn off their TV or their computer in the background, and they need to be prepared to receive the call. So they should be following the meeting. So just wanted to throw that in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for informing me. But the reason I think it should be made publicly stated is because a lot of people that don't make the call but are watching are jump to conclusions that, and your clarification to me helped me out tremendously here, but they jump to conclusions that they shouldn't. Thank you again, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Item D, under reports, item number 1 under the City Manager's Department. The subject is the City Council Strategic Priorities 5-year update process. The recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee provide feedback on the process for reviewing and updating City Council strategic priorities this winter. Mr. City Manager.
Good morning, Mayor. This is Sherry Klima. I'm going to do this presentation.
Okay.
So in October of 2015, the City Council and the senior leadership team held a priority setting public workshop. And the council at that time determined, I'll take off my mask, determined 4 strategic priority areas. And that was organizational effectiveness, economic development, quality of life, and infrastructure and natural resources. And then you also determined, or your council also determined, goals and objectives under each of these areas. So it is good practice to update these priorities every 5 years. And we the management wanted to bring that to you, to the council this winter. And so we're not asking for feedback on the actual priorities right now. That's for the winter's discussion. What we're doing is preparing and asking you about the process, if you're comfortable with this process, and then we can prepare accordingly. So the process would be in January for each of the 5 committees to consider the priorities. And we will be doing public outreach to gain public input on this process. And then in February, we'd like to have a special meeting of the City Council, and we'd like to do it at a special meeting because this is a lengthier conversation and a topic that, you know, requires some time. So we'd have a special meeting in February to discuss these priorities, and again, do a lot of public outreach and get public input. And then finally in March, have the council adopt the priorities that were determined in February at a regular meeting, again, with plenty of public outreach and public output. Just a note that given COVID, we're going to make a concerted effort to conduct public outreach via digital and other methods, not in person. But what we would like from you today, if you would, is offer us some feedback on this process. Again, not on the specific priorities that you'd like us to focus on. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you very much for the presentation, Ms. Klima, and we'll start with Committee Member Lopez. Committee Member Lopez.
Thank you. In terms of the public outreach, are you looking at specifically doing that through the public meetings, or is there a plan to do social media, online, that sort of, what would that look like?
So council member, that's a great question. And I pose that back to you to let us know what type of outreach you'd like for us to do. We're definitely going to be on the committees, and we can post some things on social media if you'd like.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. Then considering that, I think that would be a good idea to allow an opportunity to receive, some type of input, whether it's through like a survey or, an online submission, kind of to have a little bit of that homework done ahead of having, some of these discussions in public.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Committee Member Perrello.
This has some very interesting aspects. The public outreach, and Councilmember Lopez, thank you for asking those questions, because I believe that's where the fly gets in the ointment, or the fly in the milk, whatever the phrase would be. There has to be some method because of this virus and the Zoom, as we're finding the gentleman that we couldn't get in touch with him. Sometimes people are not able to work this. I would hope that social media will be used, but I would more so hope that of the 50 neighborhood councils that we use, we reach out to each and every one of those neighborhood councils. Now, I am aware that some neighborhood council leadership will not do Zoom meetings, but I'm assuming, and we know what that can do, I'm assuming that there are some members on those neighborhood council boards that would be willing to step up and conduct a Zoom meeting with their neighborhood to get more of a direct input as to what their concerns are. Because one thing with the social medium or social, the social part of the internet is, are these inputs coming from residents in the city of Oxnard? I would like very much to make sure that we're getting inputs from residents in the city of Oxnard. And sometimes the social media can be hijacked for various purposes, and that's the way of the world. The issue about language barriers, the issue about electronic barriers, having the wherewithal to be even electronic, and the method it's done are the concerns that I have with this. But I do believe we need to have something done, because in the past, when I've been involved in these, it has been a matter of putting stickers on various things, and you bring in, I have seen it with my own eyes, bring in people that have very strong interests in one specific area and oversaturate a message of importance when it may not actually have been the fairest method of doing it, because sometimes the discussions will go for a long time. People leave throughout the meeting, and then people are walking around with extra stickers in their hand, trying to get people to put stickers on the items of strong importance. I know that Council Member Lopez may not have been involved in that. She wasn't on the council at the time, but I know the mayor knows well what I'm talking about. And those are my only concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate Ms. Klima and the city manager bringing this forward to the committee. And this is a proposed process. And I would like to say first and foremost that the strategic priorities of approximately 5 years ago, many of them I think are discussed or implemented, but sometimes there's a complete disconnect between the city council, the public, and the staff about these strategic priorities. It's almost like you go through a process like this and it's talked about in the agenda. So even in this agenda and all agendas, it talks about how a specific agenda item is meeting the strategic priorities of the council. But the council almost never revisits these priorities. And the spending, because the priorities oftentimes are, they're sometimes very broad, but where this council and the future of the council really needs to get its hands around priorities is that the council needs to determine what the priorities are, and the spending should reflect the priorities. And I'm just going to be very much to the point here. We had a speaker here who just talked about, you know, the percentage of, as an example, public safety of our budget. It's 2/3 of the budget. Every single tax, sales tax dollar and property tax dollar goes to public safety. Well, public safety is the #1 priority of the community, and people are going to disagree sometimes on how much should we be spending. But I really think that what happens too often is that these strategic priorities are laid out. There's all these good intentions, but it's no different than a new plan for the downtown or whatever that might be. It just, there's all this talk, there's all this effort, and then those priorities kind of get set on a shelf and reality kicks in. And I just think that a annual revisiting the priorities annually to see, and the city manager, I think this city manager more than any other city manager that I've worked with in the city is a person who believes in quantitative results, quantitative and qualitative results. And he's a person that is more than willing to discuss, you know, frankly and openly, are we actually meeting the priorities that the council set out? I think he's very willing to do this, and he's one that does it in a very open way. So I think we have all the ingredients here. I think Committee Member Perillo's remarks about the neighborhood councils are important. A lot of times the neighborhood councils don't feel that they really have a strong role in the governance issues of the city. And this could be an excellent way to kind of kickstart this process, is by a outreach to the neighborhood councils and giving them a framework to work with. Because if you just have it open and say, hey, let's just start talking about what our priorities are. I'm not saying a conversation is not important, but I think we need a framework to approach what Committee Member Perillo said. We need a framework to present to the neighborhood councils that give valid input to members of the city council. And then finally, another thing I would add are the citizen advisory groups and them sharing their perspectives and validating more about the work that they do. So I really like this. And here's what I like about the proposed process, January 2021. I like the fact that the committees are going to consider the priorities. So I really like the fact that we're kind of starting a discussion along the lines of committees. And it does help for segmentation and prioritization, I think, along those committee process. As far as last thing here is, as far as how we involve the public and how the council kind of meets its priorities, that sometimes is a little bit tricky. And we've had various means of trying to do that. But I think most importantly, where this leads to, and that is going to be on the next agenda item. I won't talk about it in any detail, but when it comes to the budget and the city council members deciding how to spend the money and not relying on the staff to determine what the priorities are, and reading the council, that the council's actually making budgetary decisions, that this is totally tied in to this process of the strategic priorities. So you can hear maybe a little frustration in my voice, because after 14 years of government or serving in local government, I'm not altogether certain that members of the city council are really doing what the public voted them in to do and hired them to do. I'm not criticizing my colleagues on the council, not one bit. It's getting a better understanding of the fact that the most powerful responsibility of members of the council is to determine the budget priorities and actually get their hands on that process and not rely on what part-time governments do. Let the staff do all the work. That's what's been happening. 14 years of government, we allow the staff to do 100% of the work. And the city council, from my perspective, after 14 years of service and a teacher and a student of government, city councils are not actively engaged to the extent that they should about determining the priorities and how the money is spent in the city. And I would really hope that this is a change. This proposed process begins that movement. Unfortunately, I won't be around for that, but I've already thought of myself speaking under public comment when it comes to the public outreach of speaking under public comment, because I really want to see this happen. And I will conclude, members of this distinguished committee, that there's no better person to do this with than our current city manager and Ms. Klima as a deputy city manager. I think we have the highest talent to carry that out right now, and I think they'd be more than willing to do that. So anyway, sorry about the extensive comments, but as you can see, this has been an issue on my mind from the very inception of my election in 2004. What is the role of a member of the city council? And am I specifically carrying out that role? And how best can I carry out that role? And how should a council carry out their roles? Thank you.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, committee member Perillo.
My hand is up. Can I speak?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I appreciate your comments, but one thing that is, we can see the current state of affairs, and we saw in the past, the city council, as you've stated, not engaged in the priorities. One of the issues that I see, a very big issue, is the city council did not know how bad some of the infrastructure was. And sometimes that gets to either we're not listening or we weren't told. And people were concerned about telling the truth because it could cost them the job. And with respect to, I'll mention the sewer plant, because then when it started to come to light, it's like we all had priorities, what we wanted most important. But it's very similar to having a automobile. You want to get a new set of tires and you want to get the seats upholstered, and the guy's telling you the transmission and the engine are going to fall out. Are you sure you want to put that money in? The only guys that can tell you the engine and transmission are going to fall out are the experts, the mechanics, the guys that work in the city staff. When we talk about the city staff directing the priorities, you got to take care of the bottom line before you take care of the top end. It's like if the guy's telling you got too much blood pressure, but you want to get a haircut and a facelift, what do you take care of first? A haircut and a facelift, or you try to get your blood pressure under control? That's the only thing I wanted to mention, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, Committee Member Lopez? Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager and/or Deputy City Manager, any further comments on this item?
No, thank you. We appreciate your help.
Okay, very well. So that concludes that item. And Madam City Clerk, just to double check, there are no speaker cards for either one of the reports on this agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very well. And now we'll go on to the next item, which is under the City Manager's Department, review and prioritize council member agenda requests. Recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee review and prioritize council member agenda requests. And we'll go, yes.
So Mayor, the council members have put in various topics as requests in the various committees and in council. And upon your request, the city manager looked at all of these topics and assigned them to the various committees if they weren't already clearly assigned from there. So you will see that some of these requests for finance and governance have come from members of the council who are not on finance and governance. And that is because the request may have come in a different committee or it may have come at council meeting, but it most clearly is within the purview of this committee. So we have 8 items on the list for finance and governance. And as you know, this city's business takes up a lot of time and efforts, and we want to understand from you all, where are the priorities among these 8, or if you have others to add. Where are the priorities here? What's most urgent, so that we understand how to best agendize these going forward. I'd also like to point out that in the staff report, there is a typo. We said that we have requested that the Housing and Economic Development Committee review and prioritize these requests. We're actually asking that of the Finance and Governance Committee. My apologies for that. So we do have the 8 that are listed, and I can read them off. One is a review of the committee system.
Ms. Klima,
Yes.
Ms. Klima, is there a possibility of, I don't even know, of putting those up on the screen, or do we have a way of just looking at them while you're going over them?
Yes, the city clerk is pulling that up. Thank you.
Okay. And then members of the committee, my understanding is, again, the names will come afterwards, who made the recommendation. And of course, we've had a switch of committee members because we had Councilwoman Basua that previously had served, and then that was switched right midway with the switch with Council Member Lopez to join this committee. Okay, there we go.
Can you all see that?
Yes.
Excellent. So we have for this committee 8 items, 8 requests. And so the first is a review of the committee system, which did come from the city manager. Then we've got, and these are in no particular order, the fiscal year end update and quarterly revenue projections that came from Councilmember Basua. Beginning budget process in September and resuming priority-based budgeting, which came from Mayor Flynn. Update on the credit card convenience fees, which came from Councilmember Perello. Use of refinance bond savings to fund median maintenance work, which came from Mayor Flynn. A resolution supporting Medicare for all from Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. An update on the state of homelessness during the COVID crisis from Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. And then that agendas should have ex parte and city attorney's office comment sections from Councilmember Perello. So we need some feedback on the priorities here, please.
So here's what I would like to do. I'd like to take each committee member and discuss with them. We'll start with committee member Perrello. And then we have obviously then requests, all the other requests fall into either myself or other members of the city council, and then the previous member of the committee, councilwoman and former committee member Pasua. So we'll just go one by one. So committee member Perrello, you have on this items of 8 items here, you have 2 items. Can we discuss those items if they're still relevant to you, and or any feedback from the city manager, Ms. Klima, on, you know, if it is determined that these are top priorities that need to come before the committee, how we might be able to work that out. It might be, committee member Perrello, that you've already received an update on the credit card convenience fees, and that's no longer a relevant issue, or it's morphed into something else. So why don't we start with you, committee member Perrello?
I'll gladly take on the 2 that I've suggested. But I've already, of the 8, I've prioritized for the staff to find my priorities. Okay, the update on the credit card convenience fee. The city treasurer pointed out the amounts of money that we are spending to use for people as a convenience for residents or anybody paying a bill to use a credit card. That's coming out of the pockets of the entire city of Oxnard. All residents in the city of Oxnard subsidize this convenience fee. I think that is wrong. I think that this, if you are going to use a convenience, you pay for it, unless it's free for everybody. And in this case, it is not free for everybody. Somebody is paying for it. And the tremendous amount of people that are paying in cash, it hits them extremely hard, in my opinion. The other item, number 8, the agendas should have ex parte and city of Oxnard, the city attorney's office comments. I do believe that we, as council members, pick 2 people to lead the city manager and city attorney. And unfortunately, too often the city attorney's office has to sit there like a bump on a log, and they can't give information that they're aware of. We only find out certain things when it goes into closed session, sometimes much, much later, where it would have made an impact on some decision or some action we were taking based on upcoming events. And I think that when we have 2 of the highest people in the city of Oxnard, both of them hired by the city attorney, we should be able to get an opportunity to hear them if they have something to add that they feel would be important to the council and the residents. I believe this should be on the agenda of council meetings. And the ex parte communications, I've been very impressed with the ability of people to address it and the question asked in planning commission. I think they're way ahead of the ball on us. If you had discussions, Mayor, yourself, when you've mentioned, and we find out later, you've had many discussions with developers on various matters. And as one of the former committee members of the Channel Islands Harbor Task Force, I didn't know that. It didn't mean that I was supposed to, but if we were going to have meetings, and I was having meetings with, say, the people that want to increase the trash, or Harrison or Agramont, I would share that information with the council. If you now you want to have my priorities of how I think these should go, or we'll go to Councilman Lopez. What's your call, Mayor?
Well, let me just go methodically through item 4, which has your name. It says update on credit card convenience fees. You did make some statements about that. What would you like to accomplish at the committee level, member Perrello?
At the committee level, I don't want to have a purse that's got a hole in it that I'm dribbling money down the street that's going into the pockets of people that are taking advantage of the 250,000 people that live in the city of Oxnard. If you're going to get a free ride, you're going to pay for that bus ticket. If you're going to get a free meal, you're going to pay for that bus ticket. Out of the kindness of my heart, if I want to pay for your bus ticket or your free meal, that's my choice, but not where we take it from the 250,000 people that live in the city of Oxnard. I want that loophole closed. I don't know if I could say it any stronger.
Okay, and it's still a top priority that you'd like coming before the committee to
Yeah.
come before the committee.
It's cut and dry. Do we give the money away, or do we keep it in-house to make the city better for all 250,000 people that live here?
Okay, and then you just talked about item 8. So this is a governance issue rather than a finance issue, and so agendas should have ex parte and CAO comment sections like the Planning Commission. How would you how would you suggest, what would you want to accomplish at the committee level?
Either at the committee level, we are looking at this as direction for the council.
Okay,
We're looking for direction to the council. If any of us have had discussions with anybody on items coming before the council that night, they publicly state it. They cover their back and they cover the city of Oxnard when they state it. With respect to the city attorney's office, anybody that has got an interest in what's going on in the world and listening to some of these Supreme Court hearings that are going on this morning, which I was fortunate enough to get a little bit of it, you need to have an attorney telling you what the rules of the road, what the law is. Opinions, passions, all that stuff count, but facts and evidence are the bottom line. And that's what the hell we pay the city attorney for.
okay, thank you very much. Committee member Lopez, you came onto this committee halfway through the 2-year cycle, and your name doesn't appear on any of those items. Maybe it's at this time you'd like to make a comment about just this process and some of the items that are here. Any thoughts on your mind, Committee member Lopez?
Yeah, I guess I'm not too clear on what staff is looking for. If it's to identify like the next, the top 3 items on here that maybe we want to get through in the next, in the first half of the year, or are there some that are more pressing? I mean, I think these are all very important requests, and so I'm not sure how we can, check these off if it's based on, the items that are on the calendar that are scheduled based on our previous meeting, and what items we need to get through regularly, and if we can kind of spread these out as needed, just so that we can get them done.
Very well. I thank you very much for that. And I think when I asked that this come before the committee and all the committees, it was really to kind of help the staff. First of all, we have eight items here. Are there items that no longer need to be here, as an example? So just kind of cleaning house, doing a little housekeeping. And then of the items that remain, having the individual, those that have proposed that they come before the committee, have them address that, or talk about that. And a lot of this gets into process. And so I wanted to kind of take Committee Member Lopez, your remarks, and Committee Member Perella's remarks, and kind of take a look at this. I have 2 items on here, so I'd like to talk about those first. Item number 5, use of refinance bond savings to fund median maintenance work. I think that's largely going to be taken care of after the election. If Measure E were to pass, I would imagine again that the funding to restore median maintenance would be restored. And so that's no longer a top priority. It was a top priority, but also a combination of work release program work and a variety of things have kind of dealt with that. Number 3, I have a very terse statement to make about that, and make it very clear to this committee. And I'm hoping the committee will, and the city manager and Ms. Klima will take this direction, and hopefully we can begin moving forward. When it says begin the budget process in September, resume priority-based budgeting. So when I say September, I don't even know if September is the most significant month, but I think we need to, as a committee, we maybe need to give direction to the city manager and to Ms. Klima about a proposed budget calendar. So that would be it. So I really am looking more for a budget calendar, and then what elements are most critical and or benchmarks in that budget calendar. We get revenues twice a year. There's all kinds of factors that could go into that. So forget saying September. Simply put, let's get a calendar for a budget process. And then finally, resume priority-based budgeting. We've never started priority-based budgeting, except that the city manager in the last fiscal year and also to an extent this fiscal year, the city manager prioritized spending, made recommendations to us, and we approved his recommendations. So the city council 3 years ago, under the previous city manager, at my request, at my urging, we approved a $70,000 contract with the Center for Priority-Based Budgeting in Colorado. We've had members of our finance team go there to get training. We got that process started. That was suspended, largely speaking, because of the staffing issues in the finance department. And the city manager frankly told me, as the chair of this committee and as the mayor, we're making cuts. And yes, we're going to engage in prioritization, but we're making cuts right now. And this is what I would propose that we do. Let's get through this scaling down of our budget and the recommendations that I'm going to bring forward. Allow me to come back to the committee and to the council eventually to come up with a plan on how we would do this. And my strongest recommendation is that we have one of the main principals, his name is Chris Fabian, and we have him make suggestions on how we can take baby steps to begin this process. It doesn't have to be all at once. What is it that we can be doing? And I'm sure Mr. Fabian would say it's going to be the strategic summit that will lay the groundwork to begin to start this process of priority-based budgeting. So let me comment on the other items here. Item number 1, I would like to see before December 8th, I think is the date, which would be my last day with the city of Oxnard. I would like to see a review of the committee system come before the Finance and Governance Committee prior to leaving. That is a very important priority. So I would just ask that become a top priority. Council member Basua and former committee member Basua, fiscal year end update and quarterly revenue projections. I think that's something very valid, that this committee is getting constant updates. When I say constant, on a quarterly basis on revenue projections, so that we have a better idea of what's going on. And then I'm hoping members of the committee can just report that out under council business and say, hey, we had a committee meeting and we have some revenue projections. They're actually ahead of schedule, and or we have more revenue coming in than less. And this is, kind of giving updates to the rest of the council about budgets, the projected revenues, maybe even projected expenditures, et cetera. Let's see. Number 6 and number 7. I'm very happy that Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez and or the city manager that this item number 6, resolution supporting Medicare for all. I'm very glad that this recommendation is to come to the committee first. This committee is in charge of governance, and this committee is also in charge of finance. And I have, as mayor, I have stated in the past that, the city council has no direct influence, no direct role in this Medicare discussion. However, if a majority of the council members feel that we need to have a discussion about this or any other item, that's the majority of the council that makes that decision. And so I think that needs to be revisited by this committee. This committee needs to revisit how we proceed with issues like, as an example, Medicare, that are not in our jurisdiction whatsoever. How do we proceed with issues like these issues? We've seen in the past that there have been issues that have been brought to the council, and I think of 2 in particular, or 3 in particular, and that they were very time consuming, and they were time consuming for the staff. But the bottom line is this: if this city council believes that they are top priorities, whether they're in our jurisdiction or not, they are top priorities, then that's what the majority of the council decides, not the mayor, not the city manager, but the majority of the council. So when it says resolution supporting Medicare for all, I don't think that I'll be around for that discussion on the committee level. It'll be up to this committee and the future committee member to make that determination. But I think before we even do that, we need to have a discussion about issues like this that are not within our jurisdiction, and how do we best handle those issues. I'm really happy that it's come to the committee level for at least that discussion. So I'm really happy about that. Number 7, update on the state of homelessness during the COVID crisis. I don't know, Mr. City Manager, Ms. Klima, if homelessness really belongs in the is in the jurisdiction of the Finance and Governance Committee. I would think it would be more under community services. Could either one of you comment on that? Please.
Yes, I believe this was a request to take this update to the full council.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. And that's my only input. Mr. City Manager, Ms. Klima, and distinguished members of the committee, I would very much like a review of the committee system prior to my departure. And I think, Mr. City Manager and Ms. Klima, we've given pretty clear direction on at least the remaining priorities and how we can possibly work them in. I want to, on item number 6, because we do have a little bit of time, I wanted to kind of open that up to my colleagues on the committee, not just provide my pronouncements as a committee member and as the mayor. What your thoughts are about these issues like Medicare, they're national issues, maybe there could even be state issues, and the role of this committee in making that determination on how we work through those types of issues on the committee level and on the council level. And I'll start with committee member Lopez to see what her thoughts are.
So, Mayor, this is the city attorney.
Yeah.
So this is not a specifically agendized matter. You're talking
Okay.
about the item before you is whether to have future discussions about it and prioritizing it for future agendas where it would be worked up and the public would have an opportunity to comment on the specific issue to be agendized. Now, getting that feedback on whether to bring it back for that full discussion is what we're here for now, rather
okay.
than a substantive discussion of the issue itself.
Oh, okay. No. And I fully understand that. I guess what I'm asking the committee, and I don't, Mr. Fisher, if this has to be agendized, is not discussing the specifics of that issue, but rather how the council, whether the council even takes on issues like this, period. Or how we best do that, not discussing the issue itself. So maybe I'll start then with committee member Lopez and ask her about this specific item, not commenting on the item, but how we work it through and what your thoughts are, and then maybe thoughts about issues like these. How do we best as a committee, how do we work that through as a process?
Mr. Mayor, this is the city manager. What it sounds to me like what you're proposing is that we're actually going to add an item to this committee, and that item is exactly how this process would work. That's what it sounds like.
Okay, that's good.
Because we certainly can't discuss
Sure.
it today, but it sounds
Sure.
like that's what you want us to bring
Yes.
to this committee.
Yes, that's correct. Committee member Lopez.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager. That's exactly what I was going to, not to discuss a specific request, but more generally, how would we determine if the majority of the council wants to see, a resolution of this, this type or this example come forward. So I think that would be the appropriate recommendation. So thank you for that. What I did want to add, just generally though, in terms of these, and if I'm understanding correctly, is if staff needs direction on which of these items do need to go to the committee and then go to council, because based on that, I would, it seems that most of these can be taken care of at the committee level, and my observation is that the item number 2. And I believe it was, item number 8 would need to go to the full council at least for a report or just so that everyone else reviews that.
Very good. Committee member Perillo.
I'd like to go back and give what I think are important and prioritize them, which is what I thought we were doing, Mayor, before we
Yeah.
leave, all of us, even whether they're new to this committee or not, prioritize what the importance is.
Right.
One, I think number two, number one, the city manager review of the committee system, that's a hands down. We got to have that first thing, but it should be quick and sweet. I mean, I don't believe it needs more information. I believe they have the information now and they can get it to us. But item number two from Basua, fiscal year end update and quarterly revenue projections. The fiscal year end update, we get that from the city. The quarterly revenue projections, I think, are the most important. How are we going before we get to the end of the fiscal year? I put that as my number one priority. It's got to go to the council. This stuff, we can hash it out, but this is the stuff that keeps us on board to know, are we got enough money to make it to the end of the year? What the hell's going on? Number, and with money. Number three, yours, Mayor, budget process. I think we need to start the budget process sooner, but just starting it sooner doesn't mean that we get any closer to the end as we have in the past where it comes up to the last minute. In Hollywood, they call it 11th hour. I don't like that. I like it where there's more back and forth, and we work it out. The use of the credit card and the convenience fee, I think it's important. That's a money deal. That's money that the city of Oxnard is losing, and I cannot turn a blind eye to losing money. I don't leave my change on the counter. When I buy something, I may donate it to some cause that's there, but it's my money. And just like I'm looking after the money that belongs to the city of Oxnard residents, it's their money. We are leaving it there, and we are supporting people that are taking advantage of us by using their credit card. The refinance bond and the median, not the top thing. The agendas and the ex parte with the city council, I think that comes right after the money. I want to hear what you just had the city attorney pipe up. I appreciate that. He's trying to keep us and you, Mayor, from getting nailed again with a Brown Act violation. We don't want to get any more trouble. And if there's some new rule coming on board that could be a big monster we're walking into and not realizing it, he would, I would assume, have the first hand knowledge of what the hell's coming down the road to eat us alive. I want my city attorney weighing in on these councils, and I don't want somebody saying, well, he's not supposed to talk, it's not on the agenda. And along with that, I think it's not a good idea to have council members that are having meetings and not sharing that they're having meetings with people that impact city business without sharing it to the general public and the rest of the council. The Medicare and the Covet, I mean, they're going to impact us. The Medicare thing, I mean, it seems to me in my recollection, I did not hear Mayor Pro Tem ask to have these go to a council. She wanted it going to the council right here and now. And the suggestion about possibly figuring out how to get it on a committee meeting, that may be good, but I give my highest priorities. The quarterly revenues, where the hell are we going? Stop the bleeding of the cash for the convenience fees. The beginning of the budgeting process, the city attorney's office and the ex parte, the refinancing of the bond and the median. I mean, which medians, which neighborhoods? I think if we save money from refinancing the bonds, it goes to the general fund to help the entire city of Oxnard. And I've spoken enough on that. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up, I'm asking that number 5 be removed. I would make a recommendation based on what I've heard from both the committee members that we follow the order in which these were numbered. Number 5 is eliminated, and then maybe number 5, then number 8 should go. Let me ask Committee Member Perillo, if you had to do the update on the credit card convenience fees versus number 8, which one would you prioritize of the two?
Credit card.
Okay, so I would recommend to the city manager and Ms. Klima and to this distinguished committee that we follow the order in which we have here before us, that we eliminate number 5, that number 8 goes in the position of number 5. So it would be 7 items, and that's it. That's just a recommendation. I mean, that's not the final straw. Are there any questions or any comments on that by the members of the committee?
Yeah, I think that's fine, Mayor, because it seems even as Mr. Perello's going through them, they're all important. So I think, you know, we just need to work through them. So I think that's fine.
All right.
Just a final question, Mayor. Can we get staff to weigh in? Do they have direction, or will there be some discussion? Well, no, I think they wanted this and I think they wanted that. We need to get more of where instead of talking, we have some action. Do we need staff? Do they need us to take a vote on which is which?
No.
Can we have staff answer that?
No, council member, we don't need you to take a vote. You gave us very helpful feedback. I will, by way of our own feedback, tell you that the credit card convenience fees should be coming your way in the spring. And the rest of them, as you guys laid out, we will take them in that order. Thank you.
All right, very well. That gets to that item. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. And here's the irony is item E, items for future agenda items. So I will ask committee member Lopez first, if she does have any items that she would like brought before the committee.
No, I think we have enough. Thank you.
Okay. Committee member Perillo.
Bless you.
Committee member Perillo.
I'm sorry, I was muted. This is good.
Okay. And then we provided direction on what the city manager had suggested about item 6. And with that being said, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.